What is clear, Pete Strzok, is that we don't have a circuit breaker anymore. We don't have a thing that breaks the fever. I looked to see if Mitch McConnell had recanted on a statement he made to Jonathan Swan when he was asked recently this year who he would support for president in 2024. That answer right now is Donald Trump. If it's changed, I think their office knows where to reach me. But what does it do when the person who targets politicians can still count on the support of said politicians?
Well, Nicole, it does nothing but encourage it. Look, this is really, really concerning. After 9/11, the government spent untold man-hours, resources, went to war and fought radical sort of terrorists and looking at what caused radicalization, what caused violent radicalization. And there was the same sort of pattern that came out again and again. It was the ability of people to take sort of a unformed grievance and make it concrete, tell people how they'd been harmed, and then to translate that, say, these are the people that have done that harm to you. And then from that to progress to taking those people who had done the harm and seeking to dehumanize them, to belittle them, because that all lowered the cost to doing violence and attacking those folks. Now, if you look instead of at Al-Qaeda or AQAP or ISIS, and instead you look at Donald Trump and members of the Republican Party, the exact same thing is going on right now. And we're seeing the results in attacks on FBI field offices, on federal judges getting swatted and having anonymous calls to 911 made, drawing the police to their homes. We are on a path to violence. We are seeing the results of that violence. It is what we have seen for decades in an international terrorism context, and now we're seeing it here at home. And when you have Trump, when you have people like McConnell and Scott refusing to say anything, all that does is allow this pattern to continue, and I'm really worried about where we're headed.
And Pete Strzok, just to understand the extremism models, where countering extremism has worked and where it hasn't, is there any example where the extremist is flattered and appeased and acquiesced, where the extremist threat of violence goes down?
No, I mean, the best that we found as a government to try and combat radicalization is to go out into the communities here in the United States and abroad, talk to community leaders, talk to faith leaders, talk to political leaders, and say, you need to de-escalate this rhetoric. You need to hold and say this behavior is unacceptable. You need to work with law enforcement that people, when they are radicalized or you see signs of radicalization, that you turn that over and you let law enforcement know. Now, compare and contrast that, which we in the FBI and DHS and all across the U.S. government went across the United States asking communities to do. Compare that with the behavior you're seeing from Donald Trump. Compare that with behavior you're seeing out of Mitch McConnell or Rick Scott or Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever you want to pick in the right wing of the Republican Party. They are doing none of those things. If anything, they're encouraging it. And I don't think in that environment you're going to see anybody with much of an impetus to try and slow down or de-radicalize, given the heated environment that we're in.
The Wall Street Journal, which did more laundering and legitimizing of Donald Trump's presidency than perhaps any other outlet, they are as culpable as any news organization in this country for his presidency and his ongoing viability as a political figure. Charlie Sykes, they write this. This continues Trump's attacks on Elaine Chao, Mr. McConnell's wife, for being Chinese American. Her real offense was resigning as transportation secretary after Trump's disgraceful behavior on January 6th. His feud with McConnell is also personal, as the Kentucky senator condemned Trump's January 6th actions and hasn't spoken to him since. But the death wish rhetoric is ugly, even by Trump's standards, and deserves to be condemned. Trump's apologists claim he merely meant McConnell has a political death wish. But that's not what he wrote. It's all too easy to imagine some fanatic taking Trump seriously and literally and attempting to kill McConnell. Let me read that again. Wall Street Journal today warns its readers this. It's all too easy to imagine some fanatic taking Trump seriously and literally and attempting to kill McConnell. Many supporters took Trump's rhetoric about former Vice President Mike Pence all too seriously. So this is why this is our lead story, Charlie Sykes. The Wall Street Journal is today warning that, quote, some fanatic could take Trump seriously and literally. Now, they're 7 years too late to the parade, but I welcome them. This has been the threat all along. And I wonder what it is that makes McConnell, as of today, we've checked, still someone who would vote for Trump in 2024 should he be the nominee again.
Well, there's two things going on here. Number one, it is ugly rhetoric. It does need to be condemned and needs to be seen in the context of the increasing passion of people on the right for violence, including Donald Trump's embrace of QAnon, or the implicit threat that there would be chaos and insurrection if he's held legally accountable. But the second point is the one that you're addressing: is the complete lack of pushback from Republicans, including the unbearable lightness of Rick Scott, who has presented multiple opportunities to say no, racism and suggestions of death wishes is inappropriate. He wouldn't do it. And I think this is just a reminder that, you know, for a lot of Republicans, it's just they have become numbed by all of this, that they don't even try. They don't even go through the motions. And I think it's worth remembering, you know, how we got to this moment. You know, if you accept one big lie, you accept other big lies. If you're willing to swallow other racist rhetoric, you know, whether it's birtherism or, you know, the Mexican judge or S-hole countries or Muslim bans, then you know, I mean, they've swallowed it all. And so why would they stop now when there's an election to win? So Rick Scott says, you know, racism is never okay. Well, he obviously doesn't mean that, because he refuses to push back against it. He refuses to denounce it, and he will enthusiastically support Donald Trump's return to the presidency. So this is a moment that's incredibly dangerous. And I have to say that as appalling as Trump's rhetoric is, the failure of grown-up Republicans, or the alleged grown-up Republicans, to say anything about it, or to act as a circuit breaker, or to call for the de-escalation of the rhetoric, is even scarier, because it means there are no guardrails. There is nothing that is saying to Donald Trump, guys, could you just tone it down? People are being killed. People are dying. There is real violence out there. This is irresponsible. We're hearing none of that.